disaster ready. I'm Steve Lasky. I'm the Editorial Director for Security Technology Executive and Security Dealer and Integrator magazines, along with SecurityInfoWatch.com. I'll be your moderator for today's program. Today's webinar is sponsored by NEC. In today's program, we're going to take an in-depth look at what types of access control system vulnerabilities your organization may face, both natural and man-made disasters, and the potential impact on security. You will learn from an access control solutions expert how to identify, assess, and mitigate key access control failure risks and negative impacts. We will also provide insight about the relevant IT elements to improve resiliency of your access control systems. And some of the key topics that will be included in today's webinar will include identifying key risks and impact of access control outages, relevant market trends or events that exacerbate the risks or impact, key challenges and needs in mitigating the risk, and example of customer system requirements and solutions. So, before we get started, there are just a few housekeeping items that we wish to share with you. First, obviously the audio and slides for today's webinar will be delivered over your computer. If you may be out of sync, if you feel like you're out of sync with the presentation, you can simply hit the F5 key at any time to refresh your presentation viewer. Once our speakers wrap up their presentation, the remainder of the program will be reserved for our question and answer period. We certainly encourage you to submit a question at any time using the Submit Question box at the lower left of your presentation viewer window. Finally, today's webinar, including the audio and slides, will be archived for a year on the site, and we certainly encourage you, if you were not able to stay for the entire webinar, to stay on that. I'd like to introduce today's presenters. First, we have Cyrus Nelson. Cyrus is a 12-year veteran of the security industry and joined AMAG as a sales engineer in 2010. Following his passion for helping customers find concrete, secure, and efficient solutions, Cyrus assisted the creation of the Professional Services Department, and as the Director of Professional Services, he has created a standardized service offering, decreased implementation time, and increased availability of customer security management systems. Kevin Davis oversees NEC's IT Systems Engineering Department. He has over 15 years' experience in designing and providing IT solutions for business critical application systems. Kevin's industry experience spans multiple verticals, from financial services to media and entertainment. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Cyrus, and he will speak first, and then we will be followed by Kevin. Cyrus, take it away.
Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate the time to talk today. So as Steve said, I'm the Director of Professional Services for AMAG. My team discusses with our customers what their needs are, what their specific use cases are for disaster recovery and high availability, and oftentimes we turn to NEC to provide that solution. So as Steve indicated, today we are going to discuss some key risks that are specific to the access control industry or video industry, security industry, as well as the impact of some access control outages. We're going to talk about different outages that may occur, whether that's a monitoring outage or an outage to update the cardholder databases that are located in field panels. We'll discuss some market trends that we've seen over the past couple of years that may impact the risk or systems. Finally, we'll talk about some challenges in mitigating those risks, and then we'll go into a customer example that I brought with us for a national grid as a utility company in the Northeast. There's two types of monitoring outages that we really need to discuss. And the first is a video outage. So is there an impact to the system if your guard staff can't view video, or if that video isn't recording? We also need to talk about access events and the monitoring ability for that. So is there a need for your guard staff to monitor the system 24/7? Most security systems, AMAGs included, do keep the events that occur at the door at the panel level until the servers come back online. but is it worth putting something together so your guard staff isn't blind? These needs are going to be different for every one of your customers or every one of your companies. And most of the time they're driven by compliance needs. So is there a need to maintain HIPAA compliance or NERC SIP compliance? Those all need to be taken into consideration when choosing a disaster recovery plan. And finally, what is the plan for downtime? Are there operators that are familiar with the plan? How long is the downtime expected to be for? The second type of outage is not a monitoring outage, but an update outage, so updates to the access control system. Can we add employees that need to get access to certain facilities if a server is offline? Can we terminate employees' access in near real time or in real time as required? And can we grant visitors access to the facilities? Can people really get where they need to go? Are there compliance needs for removing access? NERC SIP indicates that utility companies need to remove access to terminated employees within 24 hours. If your server is down, are you able to do this? Other compliance requirements have the same sort of needs. And also we need to consider not only access control, but the security of the building as well. Can doors be secured or unlocked when the server is offline? Does that require somebody going out to the field, or can we do that remotely? Finally, what is the contingency plan? Are the backups recent? Do we need to re-enter a whole lot of data from the past week that we don't have a backup for? What's the time period going to be that we're going to need to duplicate all that data? How much is that data entry going to cost when we need to do that again? So not only do we have a security risk, but we also have a cost risk as well. The market trends that we've seen recently is that a lot of our customers are moving to multiple network operation centers or monitoring centers, not only for redundancy, but also to spread the load out through many physical areas. For the redundancy aspect, can they all connect to the same central location in order to monitor all of their sites? Or are they separated out so each facility is monitoring themselves? We're also seeing security becoming very IT-centric, leaving the physical security plant and going into the IT realm. This is usually good for the server side of things, but does the IT team understand the compliance issues, the uptime requirements that are specific to the physical security market? They may not understand that a 5-minute downtime means that you can't get in the building for 5 minutes or more. We also see that the knowledge transfer and training is key when moving from the physical security world to the IT world. There's a lot of IT tools out there that have been deployed that just aren't used. Is your access control system one of those, or has proper training been given of how important this system actually is? We're seeing a trend in virtualization to drive that cost savings, but does virtualization actually provide the uptime that's required to meet the needs that we've discussed already? And finally, is the data secure? Are there compliance requirements around the data? Where does that data physically live? Can it be encrypted, et cetera? What other needs are there for the data security? The IT team may have a good handle on this, but we need to take into consideration the physical security needs as well. So it's important to put together a plan. It needs to be an IT-friendly solution, something that the IT team is used to dealing with or can be trained easily to deal with. How hard is it to use? Is it automated failover? Is there an automated recovery? What about the data? Is the data automatically replicated in near real time? What does that downtime period look like? And finally, the cost of the maintenance as well. How well does this fit into the IT infrastructure for updates, patches, et cetera? So let's talk a second about National Grid. National Grid has been an AMAG customer for several years. It's an international electric and gas distribution company. 95% of its activities are in regulated businesses of one type or another: the oil and gas industry, utility industry, transportation industries. They're all highly regulated. National Grid is the largest utility in the UK. In the US side, we have almost 7 million electric and gas customers in the Northeast that get their service from National Grid. They have power generation plants, propane storage facilities, liquid natural gas facilities, storage facilities, and over 300 local sites, some of which are manned, some of which are unmanned substations. And they all fall under different compliance rules. So what National Grid has come up with is a solution for smart card access to individual designated facilities. Access rights are granted on an individual level. There's over 2,000 card readers. There's over 4,000 monitor alarm points and 2,500 cameras integrated into their symmetry system. From a compliance standpoint, they need to comply with both NERC CIP and the TWIC requirements. So the NERC CIP requirements are the North American Electric Reliability Corporation Critical Infrastructure Protection Standard. This means that they need to verify that the people who have access to those facilities need to have access to those facilities on a routine basis. It also requires, as I said earlier, that if a contractor or employee is terminated, that access be revoked within 24 hours. If the server is offline or if there's a downtime event, the standards don't matter. We need to still revoke that access within 24 hours. Since there are power plants that receive their coal or their natural gas through a marine environment, they also fall under the TWIC requirements as well. So using because of the Marine Transportation Security Act, we need to positively identify all personnel that come through these facilities. They first have to apply to grant access to a TWIC card or a Transportation Worker Identification Credential, and then request access from the FSO, the Facility Security Officer. And finally, when that person finally comes to the gate, it needs to be positively identified and checked through an online database to ensure that that person still has access to that facility. So obviously there's a lot of compliance requirements that National Grid has to maintain that system uptime. And in order to do that, National Grid has deployed 6 NEC FT servers that are highly available on their own. They provide 5 nines uptime in their primary data center. However, if that data center were to go offline, those FT servers are real-time synced to a disaster recovery site using NEC ExpressCluster WAN, and that provides a full failover with data replication within about 30 to 60 seconds from the offline state. So just to wrap up some of the use cases that we chatted about, first of all, we talked about the risk and the standards, the liability, the asset protection that are required on this physical security marketplace. We talked a little bit about some market trends to reduce cost, optimize resources, et cetera. And finally, the compliance area as well. What regulations do customers have? What are the auditing requirements, et cetera? And we talked about the National Grid use case. So thank you very much for your time. And Steve, I believe you'll take it from here.
Thanks, Cyrus. Appreciate that. We will now turn it over to Kevin, and he will interject with some of the NEC perspectives.
Yes, thank you very much. Today what we're going to talk about is really NEC's redundancy solutions for physical security application systems. As Cyrus alluded to earlier, one great example in terms of the National Grid use case. So as we take a look at security application systems, specifically in a standalone type of environment, modern security is often dependent on various security application systems to enable and provide core functions. Some of these include, but are not limited to, live monitoring to maintain the visibility of significant events, also access control to prevent unauthorized entry, identity management and credentialing to enable authorized access, global alerts to ensure timely notification of critical events, and video to enable video-enabled real-time surveillance functions, and also detection intrusion, specifically around sensitive facilities. So all these security functions are very greatly compromised or disabled when security application becomes unavailable. So a standalone security application is a single point of failure for security, and it's in fact vulnerable to many potential failure causes that are very challenging to mitigate. So the typical security application runs in conjunction oftentimes with Microsoft SQL Server or some database with Windows operating systems on Intel servers. So such application systems become unavailable due to various failures like application or operating system failures, server or hardware component failures, network equipment failures, or site-level disasters, whether those be man-made or natural. So for critical security systems, an effective redundancy solution should mitigate all potential failure risks by providing fast application and data recovery within minutes, continuous disk mirroring for maximum data protection, also integrating the recovery of the application and data against all major system failure causes. We also need to support a very flexible deployment options to optimize the balance between performance and resource utilization. So a minimized solution with total cost of ownership with support for hardware failures and software components is an absolute must. So NEC has a number of redundancy offerings. As shown on the last slide, there's many potential causes for physical security application failures. And we offer a flexible range of redundancy solutions in order to meet the relevant failure risk and available resources across many environments. So NEC is able to offer the broadest range of redundancy solutions based on various combinations of both server and software to provide the best redundancy for all performance and budget needs. In particular, what we're going to zero in on today is the NEC FT, or Fault Tolerant Server, and in addition, NEC's ExpressCluster software. So in the following sections, we'll briefly review the highlights of these two very innovative products. First, we're going to talk about NEC's Fault Tolerant Server. NEC's Fault Tolerant Server provides 5 nines continuous availability and uptime. And we do that by having redundant components. And when I'm talking about the redundancy of components, we're talking about CPU, memory, hard disk, the power modules, the network interface card also as well. That gives us the ability to eliminate single points of failure, and we can isolate that failure immediately. Now, there's a number of innovative technologies that actually make up the NEC fault-tolerant server. Lockstep processing. Every single read, every single write is immediately across the entire system. There's zero failover time. Because of that, there's no data loss. There's no loss of any type of network connectivity. And the greatest part about this is completely transparent to the operating system and the applications. Another aspect of it also as well is really the simplicity in order to manage this and the total cost of ownership reduction. Because as we all know, the complexity is a real big enemy of high availability. The more complex these systems are, the harder they are to manage. And we support a number of different operating systems from Windows 2012 to Red Hat to VMware as well. So to give you a bit of a physical representation and to show you the actual server itself, once again, there's no single point of failure, there's no switchover, and it's a single logical server. In terms of the redundancy control, really the intellectual property here is a Gemini engine that NEC has developed, which enables the lockstep of both modules. Normally, the two modules work synchronously as one server. So when a failure occurs, the faulty module is automatically isolated. In addition, we're using Intel Xeon processors here. So we're talking about industry standard in terms of the semiconductor makeup here. Provides very high performance and flexible operation that's suitable for a number of different environments. So when we take a look at it, continuous availability for physical security, what you'll see is that in a standalone environment, really availability, we're talking about the time to recover. Could be a few hours or longer. You have a failure at a certain aspect, field service has to be called, have to diagnose that also as well. go and identify the defective component and get that component out there, go replace that component, and restart the system. So this is really standalone. We're talking about a downtime or unavailability of the system that can be a few hours or longer. Many have gone and attempted to address this in a cluster-based system. And we're talking about a loss of security management from a few minutes to 10 minutes or more, where you have the clustering, you detect the failure, things have to restart, service is intermittent at best, and you have to go and restart the service. From a fault tolerance standpoint, when you take a look at it, the NEC solution, we're talking about absolutely no failure or no loss of service there. If in fact there is any type of failure, we immediately fail over to the additional node. We continue to be in service at that particular point, and there's absolutely no downtime whatsoever. So when you take a look at the solution, why are we talking about FT server for physical and security access? We're talking about continuous availability, 5 nines availability, which actually equates within a year to about approximately 5 minutes of downtime per year. There's no security management system downtime that's unacceptable. We're talking about continuous availability against any type of unplanned downtime. In addition, you're having server virtualization protection. So oftentimes with virtualization, you have one physical piece of hardware with a number of VMs that are on that said hardware. What happens when the hardware fails? It's kind of the all the eggs in one basket type of scenario. All of the guest virtual machines on that particular hardware actually would go down. The FT server protects against this. It's very scalable across also as well in terms of performance, and there's no performance degradation. Operational simplicity, very easy to deploy. The recovery process is autonomous, and the administration is very streamlined in order to manage the system and also to have visibility to anything that may be going on. Rapid system deployment. You do not have to change your security application. You do not have to modify any operating system. It's rapid deployment. There's no modifications that need to be made. We're talking about FT out of the box with the ability to go and load your security application, and you're ready to get up and running very, very quickly. And this technology has been proven within the industry. We're in our 12th iteration of this very innovative product. And the total cost of ownership reduction. So we're talking about time, infrastructure, and software licensing. One thing that I need to note is that the FT server is seen as a single system. Therefore, in terms of licensing, from a software standpoint, it is seen as one system, so you only have one license to purchase. And also the savings, obviously, that are associated with an application outage as well. So I just concluded talking about the FT server, the fault tolerant server. In conjunction with this, we also have our NEC ExpressCluster software, and I'm going to talk about that very briefly. So NEC's software, the ExpressCluster software, enables comprehensive redundancy for critical application systems. Obviously, security, access control is one of those very critical systems. In contrast to machine-level solutions like VMware HA, ExpressCluster provides granular application-level failure detection and recovery to minimize the disruption of critical application services from failures. More specifically, ExpressCluster provides continuous monitoring, of the target application services, the related hardware, software, and network resources for failure detection. We provide real-time mirroring of the target application data from the primary server to the standby server. We also provide fully autonomous recovery of the target applications and services and mirror data on the standby server upon detection of the failure. We have web-based management also as well for monitoring and configuration. And we only require primary and standby machines, whether physical or virtual, with basic network connectivity. So these key features enable a number of valuable benefits. And we're talking about minimized outages and impact to the application. And data is recovered within minutes of hardware, software, and site failures with very little user impact. And we have simple redundancy management, very easy to use the unified monitoring, configuration, and testing of the application and the data. So what I'm going to talk about is how does ExpressCluster work? So ExpressCluster is typically installed on a pair of servers, a primary and standby, that run in the target application. In normal operation, as you'll see in figure number 1, what we have here is that ExpressCluster monitors the target application and software services and associated resources, those being disk, network interface, etc., on both servers for failures and parallel mirrors the application data from the primary to the standby server. As you'll see in figure number 2, when a failure occurs, the application running on the primary server becomes unavailable or inaccessible. Then ExpressCluster on the standby server will automatically start a failover operation and recover the target application with the mirror data on the standby server to resume full application services to the users and other systems. The failover operation typically takes only a few minutes to complete, so users will experience little to no disruption of application services. While the application is running on the standby server, ExpressCluster will track all changes to the mirror disk for potential change-only data resynchronization. Now, when the failed server is repaired or replaced, as you'll see in figure 3, ExpressCluster will check to see if the original data on the primary server is intact. If so, we'll then perform change-only data resynchronization from the standby server to the primary server to enable fast restoration. If the original data is no longer available, then ExpressCluster will perform a full resynchronization from the standby server to the primary. In all cases, the resynchronization is done in the background, very important aspect, without disrupting the application that's still running on the standby server, providing full application and full usage to the users. So we are not degrading any type of performance, and the system is continuing to run. And as you'll see in figure 4, the primary is restored and operations are absolutely back to normal. So in terms of ExpressCluster, ExpressCluster offers fully automated recovery within minutes, integrated application recovery of integrated application and data recovery, recovery in the same or remote location. It's very easy to use, very flexible support for physical or virtual machines, and we have a very wide install base. And going back, what we've spoken about is our fault-tolerant hardware that provides 5 nines availability, and used in conjunction with ExpressCluster provides optimal availability, high availability, and redundancy, especially as it pertains to access control physical security services. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Kevin. We've reached that point in today's program where we're going to be soliciting for some Q&A. So if you still have questions that you'd like to submit, please do so. We can take those as we're answering questions. Again, you just use the Submit Question button on your presentation viewer window, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you do have. So I'm going to go ahead and pose the first question, and let's go with question number 8 right now. And we had someone asking if the PowerPoint would be, a copy of the PowerPoint would be available. And right now, all the slides will be available on the archived version on securityinfowatch.com right now. So we will get that to you when as soon as this is archived. So let me throw out a couple of questions right now, and we'll throw this out to Kevin first, if we could. Kevin, we have a question that is asking, would you recommend, this would be for Cyrus, I'm sorry, number 9 would be for Cyrus. Would you recommend running an access control system or camera system as well on a server that is virtualized with other non-security systems on the same server, or have the security systems, which would be the camera or the access control system, on its own dedicated server? What are the pluses and the minuses for either variation? Cyrus?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So there are some cost implications of putting services on the same server, right? So if we load up servers to their capabilities, we can certainly save money on both the operating costs and the initial capital expenditure of those servers. Unlike most IT systems, however, access control and specifically video systems do rely on real-time access. So whether there's a database server hosting an HR system or something like that, they may not need to be up real time. Specifically, video systems need to be recording 24/7 in real time and have access to those drives. And again, specifically to those video systems, there's a lot of data being pushed through those servers, so it's important to understand what the throughput requirements are of the applications that are going to be using that. So although it is certainly possible, and there can certainly be some benefits of doing that, in most applications we see these running on their own dedicated servers just so that we can guarantee that there's nothing else affecting the real-time operation of these systems.
Very good. All right. Got another question that we'd like to get answered, and Kevin, let's go with you again on this one. What is the main difference between an NEC solution and the VMware solutions?
Actually, I'm going to have George and Hero on the phone with me address those.
Oh, great.
Hi, this is Hiromat. Hi, good afternoon and good morning where you are. This is Hiromat Tsunami of NEC, product manager responsible for the NEC fault-tolerant servers. The VMware and the NEC solution, we provide both fault-tolerant solution. The VMware is a more software-based fault-tolerant. NEC provide hardware-based fault-tolerant. The functionality is very much similar, but NEC has superior scalability and performance. Because of the hardware-based fault-tolerant server has no performance penalty, and NEC's lockstep technology provide 5.9 availability without any degradation of CPU performance as well as memory. So the NEC provide the scalable, more performance, and easier fault-tolerant capability.
In addition to augment Hero's answer, we also have a third-party report from Principal Technologies that actually compares the NEC fault-tolerant server to VMware HA, and we'll be more than willing to provide that to all the participants on the phone.
Very good. All right, Cyrus, I'm not sure what the exact question is, but let me throw this one at you. From how many doors do you believe this to be a possibility, or the market target? I mean, obviously you won't have a 2-door system on this unless it needs an HA. So you want to step in there?
Yeah, absolutely. So there isn't necessarily a system size that I would recommend a disaster recovery solution for. We have some critical sites running in the military that are running 4 doors on an FT server with ExpressCluster backing it up. But looking at what the requirements of the facility are in terms of downtime and availability, most of the time we will recommend it for larger companies or larger facilities, just because there is a larger need for high availability, but there isn't a specific system size that I would start recommending this at, just off of just as a standard solution. It's a consideration for any size system.
Very good. Okay. Next question, and this will be for the NEC team. How much system overhead is required to operate the NEC clustering ExpressCluster?
George, please. George might have been disconnected. There's little to no overhead regarding ExpressCluster. Runs once again on standard servers, standard hardware. Obviously, working in conjunction with the fault-tolerant server, it's a very appealing, high availability, fault-tolerant failover solution. There's little to no overhead that's associated with that product.
Very good. Let me throw this question out to the both of you. And some of us old-timers that go back remember a time when access control systems we're on a standalone network. So the question is, access control systems used to run on a parallel network, and they weren't integrated into the corporate networks and had little interaction with IT. Are there still benefits of having a separate EAC network? And if so, what are they? And if not, why?
Yeah, Steve, this is Cyrus. I can take a stab at that one. It goes back to my comment a few minutes ago about the real-time nature of access control in video environments. Most of the time, corporate networks have quality of service set up on their switches to prioritize voice over IP and other services that may need to be real-time. So we do see some benefits, or a lot of benefits, on separating that traffic out, just so we can guarantee the quality of service for the access control and video environments.
Very good. Kevin?
Yes, I think you really Cyrus offered a more comprehensive answer to it. Is there an aspect of the question that you want me to get specific on?
Okay, good. All right, let's go to another question here and direct this again at the NEC team. Next question is, what does the lockstep of FT server mean?
This is Kevin. What it does is that the two hardware modules that are within the FT are processed. The processing is completely synchronized per CPU clock speed basis, and that's what we're talking about in terms of lockstep. The benefit is no downtime and no loss of data. Every single read, every single write, every single aspect of what's coming into the server is committed on both of the hardware modules within the FT server. That way, if one particular module fails, the secondary module already has the information, already has the reads, the writes, also the in-memory aspect of it, and will continue to run with no downtime.
Kind of segueing on this, does the FT server need two software licenses since it has two hardware modules?
No, it only needs one software license because, once again, in lockstep, although there are two hardware modules within the FT server, to the operating system and other applications, it appears to be one system.
Okay. Another question we have here has to do with redundancy and compliance. And the question is, has the NEC redundancy solutions been deployed for utilities that need to meet NERC and SIP compliance?
Yes, absolutely. AMAG has deployed several solutions with FT servers as well as ExpressCluster to meet the NERC SIP compliance. In fact, this is our standard going forward unless customers specify anything else.
Excellent. Okay. We've got another question here. My reader panels continue to work even when the security application system is down. Do I still need redundancy for the security application system? And I'll let you both answer that.
Yeah, I can take that, Steve. So You're absolutely correct that the reader panels normally will continue to operate. They have an internal database, and so the card readers and door strikes will continue to operate. However, we can't make updates to those in most cases unless the server is online. So we can't add, remove card holders, and we're not going to be monitoring that from any location either. So yes, the doors will continue to operate, but we can't change anything.
Excellent. You know, right now, when you look at the complexity, again, the growing complexity of access control systems and basically the network-centric nature of where technology is going, I mean, where do you see, and again, I'll throw this out to both of you, where do you see the future of EAC and you know, how technology is moving forward, and just from an end user perspective, making sure that you're staying ahead of the one step ahead of the curve, and actually you know, knowing what you need for your facility and what's the best way to you know, ensure that you're up to date and staying ahead.
Well, it's Kevin from NEC. One of the things that we see throughout the industry, obviously, security and other practices, is really the virtualization of the data center. And it's really sweeping, you know, across the data center, whether it be server virtualization, network virtualization, storage virtualization. So that's really where the industry is moving. And one of the things that we alluded to during the presentation is really the eggs in one basket scenario. So oftentimes you have a physical server that's virtualized that has a number of different guest systems that are virtualized, running any number of applications on that single server. So virtualization is great in terms of cost reduction and manageability. However, when you have a single failure on that hardware, and that hardware is not redundant, it will take down multiple systems. So really the things that we see is that people are taking a proactive view towards protecting those systems. And the FT server, in conjunction with ExpressCluster, is really key in terms of addressing those needs. Because virtualization is something that is here. It's something that a number of companies have adopted for a number of different systems. And really the reliability of the hardware and also the ability to fail over in case the data center goes dark is going to be particularly key to protecting those systems. Cyrus, did you have some thoughts on this as well?
No, I think you covered most of it there. The virtualization of the data center is very key to what we've been seeing recently, so I think you covered that very well. Thank you.
Okay, Cyrus, I do have a question for you. What are the impacts of express clustering on licensing requirements? Does it require 2 for 1 licenses or 1 for the express cluster setup? I'm not sure if we've answered this one.
Yeah, so it really depends on the application. ExpressCluster itself is licensed on a per cluster node basis. In a typical environment, there's 2 of those for an AMAG deployment of ExpressCluster. The applications that reside on those servers are licensed again per the licensing contract that's with that vendor. So Microsoft SQL, for example, will need a license per server or per core and per server. And then AMAG Symmetry is licensed. We have a cluster-aware version, so 1 license of the cluster-aware version of Symmetry is required for the entire cluster, not 2 different licenses.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I think we've reached the end of our questions. And either one of you have a parting comment, you're free to regale us with that now.
I'll defer to Cyrus first.
Well, thank you all for attending. I hope you all learned something out of this, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you very much.
Yes, and this is Kevin Davis with NEC. Absolutely appreciate your time and your interest. Really, again, hardware failure is inevitable. Virtualization is something that's coming. So having the ability to protect those systems is absolutely key to ensuring that you have redundancy for physical security application systems. And I truly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. All right, so I'd like to thank everyone who attended today's program, as well as Kevin and Cyrus for sharing their insight on this very interesting and key topic. This webinar will be archived on our site for 1 year following today's presentation, and you will receive an email notification once that has occurred. To access more of the webinars that we've had over the last several years, you can visit securityinfowatch.com/webinars. Again, thank you again, and thanks again for NEC for sponsoring this valuable webinar.